Canary by Cloud9 and 3/4. Chapter 26. The Aftermath. This was not a scene to be smiling at. But Shinso was so caught up the fact that he just helped defeat the hero killer with a knock-knock joke that he couldn't help himself. "I can't believe that worked," he exclaimed, pulling at his persona cords to ensure that his imitation of All Might's voice wouldn't be repeated. And then Midoriya was laughing too. Crying, but laughing. It was often a combination of the two when it came to Midoriya. Eraserhead skidded around the corner a couple of seconds later. Once Shinso was behind him, Mr. Aizawa's hair decided that it didn't like gravity anymore as he activated his quirk. Whatever Stain's quirk was, seemingly a paralysis one like Midoriya had assumed, it was immediately countered and the four injured people sprawled across the alleyway sighed in relief as they were freed from the power. Mr. Aizawa reached Ida first, helping him to his feet, interrogating him over what had happened whilst Shinso reached Todoroki. The ice on his right arm was slowly thawing as he used his fire to remove it. Shinso's eyes rested momentarily on the blades digging into his right, but before he could even ask if it hurt, which would have been stupid anyway, Todoroki stooped down again and scooped a small bundle of fluff off the floor. Siren. Shinso gasped as he took her from his wounded friend. For a second there, he thought she was dead, from all of the red staining her feathers. But either God had rejected her, or Satan had sent her back because she hadn't finished her duty of terrorizing everyone and everything just yet. Because she rolled back on her front and gave Shinso a disgruntled tweet. He sighed in relief, and then moved on to check on Midoriya. He was still right by Stain's feet, sobbing silently with a wide smile on his face. "Can you get up?" Shinso questioned, propping Siren up on his shoulder to free his hands and offer one to Midoriya. Midoriya didn't falter to grasp the outstretched hand. He put an awful lot of weight on Shinso as he shakily stood up. Shinso was sure to pull him away from Stain before he fell right into him. "How many songs did you use?" he demanded, quickly realizing that it wasn't an injury preventing him from standing, but sheer exhaustion. He didn't reply at first. He was more interested in Siren, hopping from Shinso's side to Midoriya's. After this morning, 5? 5? I didn't sing the entire song, he muttered, staring at Stain's motionless self. "We should get going," Todoroki interjected. He reached Midoriya's other side, pulling his arm around his uninjured shoulder. Shinso did the same on his other side, and they hoisted the slightly shorter boy forwards. They reached Ida. He hung his head, clutching onto his discarded helmet with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he breathed, "for all the trouble I caused." "You didn't cause any of this, Ida," Midoriya whispered in reply. His voice was quiet, but there was something strangely calming about it. "I'm just glad you're alive." "Shinso." He turned back to Mr. Aizawa. He had Stain wrapped up in his scarf. The other injured hero had removed most of the villain's weapons. He smiled at them softly as Mr. Aizawa continued to speak. "Can you make him follow us out of the alley?" Shinso nodded, and he turned back to Stain. "Follow us," he said simply, and the villain began to trudge forward, whilst Mr. Aizawa held onto him like a dog on the end of a leash. It was surprising how close they were to the main street, that all this madness had happened only a few twists and turns from normality. When they were free from the darkness of the Hosu back alleys, they were almost immediately bombarded by other pro-heroes sent this way by Endeavor. Todoroki looked a bit bitter about it. Their eyes zeroed in on Stain, standing head down beside Eraserhead. Shinso had never been so tempted to make someone do a stupid dance under his mind control before. But that probably would have been pushing it a little. He whispered that to the others, though, just so they could share in his amusement. Midoriya giggled under his breath, but Shinso felt him sinking. Down, down, as he laughed softly, the adrenaline wearing away as his mind shut down, falling into a deep slumber. Midoriya awoke with heavy eyes and a stiff body. He could probably have turned over and fallen back to sleep, but as soon as he was conscious enough to think it through, memories of the fight came flooding back. He opened his eyes. Knock knock. Who's there? Got who? Got you. Shinso was laughing at a now blank-faced Todoroki, who had bandages wrapped all the way up his arm. He was released from Shinso's quirk moments later. I still don't understand why you have to respond in such a way every time. Todoroki frowned. That's just how it works. Shinso replied, confused as to why Todoroki didn't know this. Midoriya would have just lay there in his ball of blankets and pillows and watched distantly for a while if Siren then didn't appear in his face and chirped loudly in his ear. He groaned and pushed her out of the way. Midoriya, Ida was the first to say. The other two followed suit immediately after. He rubbed his eyes and sat upright, feeling extremely groggy. Where am I? The hospital. We're still in Osu. Shinso replied quickly. He was the only one in ordinary clothing. The rest were in hospital attire. Midoriya realized he was too. Shinso was sitting in a chair between Midoriya's and Todoroki's bedsides, whilst Ida's bed was opposite. He turned the chair around to face Midoriya properly, a concerned look on his face. Are you alright? He asked. You've been asleep for quite a while. Todoroki finished for him. How long? Midoriya questioned. It's almost 5:30, so I can't remember exactly what time you passed out last night, but it has to be around 20 hours at this point. Shinso explained. He gaped as he shuffled out of his bed sheets, almost burying Siren in the process. I didn't realize I was that... Quirk exhaustion. Shinso waved him off. You need to get used to the limits of your quirk, Midoriya. He rubbed his head sheepishly before Siren re-emerged and decided to nestle in his hair again. Is Siren supposed to be here? Shinso raised an eyebrow. Try telling that to Siren. Midoriya grinned as he imagined the hospital staff trying and failing to remove the little green bird from his side. What about you? Midoriya asked, rubbing at the large plaster on his cheek. You're not injured, are you? Shinso shook his head. I stayed the night here, though, rather than going all the way home. I've just been with Mr. Aizawa all day. He didn't miss out on much. But weren't we supposed to be going to... Midoriya's eyes widened. The radio show! Oh no, it's Thursday! I'm going to miss it! Yeah, don't worry about that. Shinso smiled. Oh, actually, Mr. Aizawa was going to talk to us all about something later. If you're awake now, I could go and get him. He offered. Yes, do that. And then we can get some food from Midoriya. Todoroki suggested. He turned back to him. I suppose you're hungry. You haven't eaten anything in a while since you've been asleep for so long. Midoriya smiled softly at how thoughtful that was. Yeah, thanks. I'll go now then. Shinso nodded, getting to his feet and hurrying over to the door. I'll be right back. As soon as he was gone, Midoriya saw Ida bow his head. What about you, Ida? Midoriya questioned, unsure of what else to say. His arms looked far worse than Todoroki's, covered extensively in bandages, and one was even in a sling. How are you feeling? I'm so sorry, Midoriya, he said immediately, completely sidestepping Midoriya's questions as if they weren't all that important. I'm sorry you had to use your quirk so much for me. I'm sorry I got you hurt. I'm sorry any of this happened at all. Ida! Midoriya exclaimed. Don't be sorry! Wasn't the hero killer arrested? He was arrested, right? Todoroki nodded in reply. Yeah! And Todoroki's okay? Another nod. And I'm okay. And Native? Nod. Everyone's okay. Native would have been killed if it weren't for you. But are you okay? He looked up at him, a slight mist covering the inside of his glasses. Yes. My arm was rather badly hurt, as you can see. But it could have been far worse had the two of you, 3 including Shinso, not stepped in when you did. Even Siren helped, Todoroki added, pointing at the bird on Midoriya's head. Shinso said she picked out a Nomu's eye. Midoriya stared. She did what? He said angry little birds go for the eyes. Now Midoriya wasn't sure if he was being serious or not. The prospect kind of scared him. But before he could question it further, the sliding door to the room was opened once more. From it came Shinso, Mr. Aizawa, Manuel, and a man with a dog's head? Shinso hurried back over to Midoriya. He looked kind of nervous.
How are you feeling, Midoriya?
Mr. Aizawa asked primarily. He was still in his hero costume. Midoriya wondered if he ever took it off at all. I'm fine, sir, he mumbled in reply, swinging his legs across the bed to allow Shinso room to sit down next to him.
Good.
He nodded, saying it like he'd just passed a test.
We'll talk later, but for now you all have a visitor.
He turned to the only stranger in the group.
This is Kenji Suragame, Hosu's chief of police.
Midoriya gulped. This could be good.
He invited them to stay seated after the others started to scramble to their feet. Todoroki and Ida stood anyway, though, gaping at him when he made a soft whoof noise in the same way that Shinso and Midoriya did.
So, you're the UA students who brought down the hero killer, huh?
He continued, gazing at each one of them in turn. We are, Todoroki affirmed quickly.
And not all of you are even Hero Corps students quite yet, as it turns out.
Shinso and Midoriya exchanged glances.
I'm here about Stain,
Suragame explained.
He has some serious injuries. He's in another hospital under strict guard. Woof. A couple of broken ribs, some serious burns, a damaged jaw, but most severe of all, we had to get his stomach pumped. He had been poisoned, you see. Well, it is rather dangerous to lick blood off the alleyway.
Shinso retorted. Midoriya struggled to keep his composure.
Yes, but it is even stranger to somehow ingest such deadly toxins when all of your blood is clean and nothing else is found in that street. And then, after all, we realized that whatever was in his stomach had now gone, or no longer had its toxic effects. Woof. Of course, that was why it was so easy for you to brainwash him into Shinso.
He nodded to him.
He was most likely hallucinating, seeing All Might at the end of the road. That's because I mimicked his voice with my support item,
Shinso explained.
I see. Woof.
The chief of police replied.
Although the question still remains, how was he poisoned?
His eyes settled on Midoriya.
With such a versatile quirk, we can only assume it was something you sung, Canary.
Midoriya faltered but bowed his head and nodded.
You have a powerful ability,
Suragame continued, scratching his ear.
Eraserhead has informed us you were able to destroy one of the Nomu single-handedly.
Midoriya caught a glimpse of Ida's and Todoroki's expressions from the corner of his eye. Manuel's too. They clearly didn't know about this yet.
See, what you did there was perfectly acceptable, and falls under Eraserhead's responsibility as your supervisor. He told you to do it, as a pro hero, and you, acting as his intern and Hero Corps students, acted appropriately. Woof. After you were picked up by that other Nomu,
Mr. Aizawa said, glancing at the chief briefly to check if it was okay to talk. After a swift nod, he continued, I told you to use your quirk to protect yourself and to protect others. That was very specific wording.
Like the first time with the Nomu,
added the chief.
Your confrontation with Stain was under the direct instruction of the pro hero you were interning under. Despite the fact that he wasn't expecting you to run into him, you still used your ability to protect Native and Tenya Ida, as well as yourself, Wolf. If you had not attacked Stain with the sole purpose of protecting others, we wouldn't be able to twist the paperwork so easily. But thanks to Eraserhead's quick thinking, everything you did was perfectly legal. However...
Oh, Midoriya didn't like that, however.
Not all of you acted entirely lawfully.
He continued to explain the rules and regulations around using quirks as weapons, what heroes could do and what the police couldn't, and more specifically what students who didn't act under the order of their supervisor without a professional hero license were not allowed to do. Todoroki was furious. Are you saying Ida should have just left Native there to die? Or I shouldn't have stepped in to stop Stain from murdering all three of them?
So it's okay to break the law as long as it goes your way?
There were some backhanded comments thrown between the two of them. Midoriya felt rather helpless as he shrunk back. Shinso was gritting his teeth, seemingly trying to hold back a similar anger to what Todoroki was displaying.
Calm down, kid,
Mr. Aizawa suddenly interjected.
Hear him out first.
Todoroki backed down a little, unsure.
It's a legal responsibility of heroes and of the police department to publicly release the doings of any and all heroes in a villain attack. Stain's broken ribs were from Ida's assaults, whilst his burns were from yours, Shoto Todoroki. However, since none of you are official heroes yet, we may be able to twist the story a little and keep your names out of it. If we were to do that, neither of you would have to face the punishment that you really should, but you wouldn't get the recognition either. But somehow we still have to explain those burns.
He turned back to Midoriya.
Me? He squeaked.
Yes, Endeavor was also around, so alternatively, we could say that he defeated the hero killer. But the poisoning doesn't follow up. However, as I said, your quirk is very versatile, something you displayed in the sports festival. Woof. You can use fire, and an ability to strengthen your blows, and something to poison him. Using all this would match up with your quirk exhaustion as well. Todoroki's injuries could be related to incidences elsewhere in the city due to how busy last night was. We could say that Ida was there after running into him with Native and looking very similar to Incendium, was quickly incapacitated. And then Canary turned up and was able to hold him off until Shinso arrived to stop him, and Eraser had lifted the effects of his quirk. Woof.
Midoriya's heart was in his mouth. Him? Take nearly all the credit?
This would ultimately mean that Eraserhead, Shinso, and Canary would get all the praise for defeating the hero killer despite everything that the two of you did. But we could tell the truth. The choice is yours.
Either way, me and Endeavor will need to take responsibility for being negligent as supervisors. Manuel sighed. And Endeavor will be punished. Todoroki questioned quickly.
He shouldn't have let you out of sight in such a dangerous time,
Mr. Aizawa explained.
Not even as a father, let alone a pro hero.
Todoroki turned his head slightly away from them, but Midoriya didn't
With his slight smirk.
Ida bowed before Manuel, apologizing for the 100th time that day. Yeah, you caused us a lot of trouble, Manuel said, batting him jokingly on the head. Remember that and don't do it again. Todoroki then apologized too, bowing only slightly to the chief of police.
I know it's not fair.
And with a bow, he said,
but at least allow me to thank you.
You could have started with that, Todoroki muttered.
All that's left to do is first give this information to a responsible media outlet first, making sure that they word everything as we need them to.
Tsurigami exclaimed, standing upright again.
Thankfully enough, we were able to find someone on such short notice. In fact, I will go and collect them now. It's not long until Canary is supposed to be on the radio, and the public will want answers for his absence and for the arrest of the hero killer Stain.
I'll go and get them now, if you want, sir, Manuel offered. It seemed like he was desperately trying to get into the chief's good books.
I will come too,
Tsurigami nodded.
Thank you all again. Other officers will be visiting you soon to get your official statements of the case.
And with that, they were gone. Mr. Aizawa sighed.
What are we going to do with you, problem child?
Midoriya sat there and blinked for a moment before he realized that he was talking to him. What?
Both of your internships are over, by the way.
The hero continued.
Neither of you acquired very serious injuries, unlike Ida, but it will probably be for the best to keep the two of you out of the public's eye for a little while. And you can have some time to recover for the rest of the week.
Midoriya was secretly pleased they never reached Friday.
He had not been looking forward to Midnight's
tutelage.
As for you, Shinso, you need a hero name. You said you didn't want to go as Raven, so you weren't well known as an underground hero, correct?
He nodded.
Then you're going to have to think of something else. And fast. The reporters will be here any second.
Shinso's eyes widened at the sudden revelation that he now had a matter of minutes to decide on a name that would most likely stick with him for the rest of his life. Mr. Aizawa hesitated before turning back to the door.
I'm going to double check with the chief of police as to what exactly I need to do. It wasn't that clear. If the reporters come up before I do, make sure not to tell them too much yet. Understand?
They all nodded simultaneously before Mr. Aizawa hurried out of the room and they were left alone. Silence fell over the four of them before a moment. Midoriya was busy brainstorming hero names. Oh, that was quite a good one, actually. Brainstorm! But Shinso seemed to be preoccupied. He let out a little laugh and sported that sadistic grin of his.
I can't believe I stopped the hero killer with a knock-knock joke.
Midoriya started jolting so Siren almost fell off his head. I almost forgot!
Imagine the headlines. Oh, please don't tell them that! Breaking news. The hero killer Stain defeated by a knock-knock joke and Britney Spears.
Don't you dare tell them that! Shinso sighed and stood up, wandering over to the fourth bed and collapsing into it.
I'm just collecting blackmail material to use against you. You're too scary to not have something prepared.
Midoriya started, but before he could say anything else, that sliding door opened once more. My baby fledglings! Shinzo sat up and blinked.
Oh, wow. Aozora's headphones aren't surgically fused with her head.
Shinzo sighed as a familiar blue-skinned woman, who wasn't wearing headphones for the first time since Midoriya met her, dashed into the room and threw herself at Midoriya. We were told what happened, but that you were hurt by a villain, and then you didn't turn up at the radio, and...
You're going to suffocate him.
Shinzo deadpan from across the room as Aozora hugged Midoriya so tightly that Siren had started to threaten her in warning. Aozora finally released him, and he was finally able to look at her. Are you crying? Midoriya gaped. No! She was. She very much was. There were onions, okay? She sobbed, not even trying to rub the tears from her face as she desperately tried to keep smiling. But it ended up just looking creepy like most of her smiles did.
This is a hospital,
Shinso pointed out. They were doing surgery on it! She cried back.
On an onion?
She pointed at him accusingly. Clock discrimination!
You don't look like an onion,
Todoroki interjected. They all stared at him. Thanks, Aozora said, now crying even harder.
Aozora's quirk is that she's an onion in human disguise.
Shinzo smirked.
Puffin theory confirmed.
Aozora just stood up and walked towards Shinso, her arms outstretched. Can I have a hug, Raven?
No, don't touch me,
he replied with a blank expression. She just stood there, arms wide, with gallons of tears rolling down her face. Shinzo caved after about a second.
You're using up your hug tokens.
I only get one hug token, she sobbed. He glared at her, but then sighed.
You get two.
Excuse me, but who are you?
Ina questioned from across the room as Aozora practically strangled Shinso in one of her hugs.
Are you the reporter?
Wait, you're not a reporter, Aozora?
Midoriya remembered.
You just run the radio. I don't just run the radio, she exclaimed, freeing Shinso in the process. But no, I'm not a reporter, but I'm the manager, so I came.
Then where's the reporter?
Shinso questioned. Talking with Eraserhead, she explained. But anyway, hey, I'm Aozora. I co-produce Put Your Hands Up Radio, and I'm Canary's boss. I thought I was disowned? Midoriya frowned. You run me out, she whimpered.
None of this makes any sense,
Shinso acknowledged, throwing his hands up in the air.
I don't understand,
Todoroki said, raising his uninjured hand slightly. What is your quirk? Shinso and Midoriya turned to her with wide, expectant eyes. She just grinned in a way that almost made Ina recoil. Never mind that, was all she said. She so knew Midoriya wanted to know the answer to that. She was doing this on purpose at this point. So unfair.
So, you're not an onion?
Todoroki raised an eyebrow. Aozora just pointed at him. Who is this person, and where are the adoption papers? Oh, Aozora! Minna exclaimed. This is Puffin and Crane! What? She shouted. She'd stopped crying now, but her skin was still shining with the remnants of her tears. Aozora jumped up and ran over to Todoroki. You're Puffin?
This is from our aviary chat, right?
Todoroki asked Midoriya. He nodded happily. Then I suppose so. She grabbed his shoulders. I love you so much!
She does that.
Shinso sighed.
Just accept it.
That was when the door opened once again and Mr. Aizawa returned with a rather short woman by his side. She wore a green and yellow dress with lots of light brown hair that must have taken ages to brush, only held out of her eyes by her large circular glasses. Yoika! Aozora suddenly exclaimed, leaving Todoroki's side and hurrying over to her. Yoika immediately sidestepped Aozora as if she was used to her antics and walked further into the room. Hello, I am Yoika Kukisha, a reporter with Put Your Hands Up Radio. We are going to be the ones to officially broadcast your story to the world, and we have... She checked her watch. Exactly 2 hours before Canary's hour begins, before which we must have the story prepared.
Midoriya gulped, glancing at the others, who didn't look nearly as nervous.
Kukisha pulled a tablet and an electronic stylus from her satchel. She turned it on, and the end of the pen glowed bright green. So, shall we begin? President Max Radio Show! Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1830 to 1930, crossed out. Canary's Hour, crossed out. Present Mike. Hello, my little listeners, and welcome to the Canary's Hour. It was mentioned earlier today, but Canary won't be in this evening, and we have had many, and I mean many, calls and comments asking where he is, but don't worry, he is okay. Everyone is fine. More than fine now, actually. I am going to hand over to our wonderful friends down in the news department to explain. We haven't had a breaking news story interrupt our usual broadcast in ages. We will still be having our normal news section at the end of the show, of course. But let us simply enlighten you as to what has been happening over the last day. See you in a moment. The usual music for introducing the news segment is played. Kukisha. Good evening, I am Yoika Kukisha, coming to you live from Hosu City. It was in these very streets that yesterday evening the infamous hero killer Stain was arrested by police after seriously injuring a pro hero and a UA Hero Course student attending an internship in the area. Also in the area at the time was the pro hero Eraserhead training 2 interns of his own from UA, the future heroes Canary and Brain Blank. After being separated due to villainous activity elsewhere in the city that evening, Eraserhead was able to instruct Canary to use his quirk to protect others and himself until they were able to reunite. After getting lost and then encountering the villain Stain, Canary was able to hold off the hero killer and protect those under Stain's paralysis quirk until Brain Blank arrived to immobilize the villain and Eraserhead was able to counter his quirk. Canary has been in Hosu General Hospital for severe quirk exhaustion since the attack began at roughly 8 o'clock last night and shall be released shortly. Meanwhile, Stain, real name Chiyozome Agakuro, is under heavy police guard as he is treated in an undisclosed location before his official trial where
the radio disintegrated under his touch.
He's all they're talking about.
He hissed, his nails digging into the wood of the bar counter in frustration.
Him and that pesky little brat.
he slammed his fist into the table, sending dust scattering around him and sending liquid sloshing out of the glasses not far away.
So annoying. Both of them.
What will you have us do?
The man of mist questioned, narrowing his yellow eyes in interest.
I want to get rid of him.
He snarled, now scratching at his neck in frustration.
He disintegrated my noble. Is cheating. That quirk. I hate it. And I can destroy whatever I hate. Right, Sensei?